Hey, this is Amy with Flower Moxie. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to attach florals to a wedding sign. It isn't very technically difficult, but there's so many different scenarios that makes it kind of difficult to teach because it depends on the sign that you have and the stand that you have. So I have two different scenarios here, and I will tell you the bag of tricks that I bring when approaching this. It's always difficult as a florist because you don't have a sign typically in your possession. You're just showing up on site and you're figuring out what you have. So for instance, this one, ideally, so let me take this down. Ideally, the sign would come up to around here and you would attach your florals to the easel. And that's the difficult thing, is you never know what you're gonna get when you get on site. So for this sign, I might be able to get away with zip tying like an igloo up here or zip tying just a floral swag to this. If this covered the easel completely, the question is, what do you do? So for this sign specifically, and this is such a good example, I would attach command hooks upside down on the back of this. And when we get a little bit further along, I will show you how I do that. For this wooden sign, I would ask the client, like, can we put any little nails, any little hooks? Can we drill something, you know, on the back? That way I can hook up whatever, I could hook up that floral swag, you know, bring a little wire and wrap it, or if I'm using this foam igloo, you know, could I hang it? That's what makes signs difficult, because for this one, if she had asked for a sign for this, or florals for this, I couldn't do it up top because it would block the wording. So more than likely, I would want to attach the florals down at the base. Actually, making the florals isn't hard. You've seen me use an igloo. Basically, you green it out, backfill with your flowers, but I will show you how to make a floral swag without foam, and this is the way I do it as a florist. So what you're kind of thinking of is creating like a swag. And so it isn't very complicated to make because you're just holding it at a horizontal level. And this is one whole bunch of seeded eucalyptus. It's about to go off crop. It's starting to get into that cupped phase. And I think silver dollar, you want to find a greenery that's naturally going to have some drape to it. So Italian ruscus, plumosa, eucalyptus is naturally a little bit floppier, and so it makes for really nice floral swag greenery. Okay, I don't care that it's messy up here. Normally I'm always preaching to clean your stems, trim everything up. I don't do that when I'm building these. I just let it ultimately just be sloppy, and I trim it up at the end. Okay, so I have this movement of greenery. You kind of see where I'm going with that. You know, if we were to anchor this right here, obviously that wouldn't work for this sign. And then I start layering in my flowers. And you want to pick hardier things like carnations, roses. I'm gonna try to build this so you can see it. So come in with like a blush pink carnation, a rose. Let's bring in some linear flowers like the stalk. So I kind of work on one side and then I flip it around and work on the other. So I'm holding this in my hand pretty loosely. You don't have to be perfect with it as you're building it, so don't let yourself get flustered. And I'm okay with these long stems right now. I'll cut them down later. And the reason why I don't cut them as I go is, for one, it's easier to build, and two, those long stems, they They just kind of support what I'm working with, and it's easier to build with those long stems in place. If they're shorter, then it's easier for them to slip out of your hand. So we cut them at the end just fine. So I'm just threading these in, and you can see my hand placement. Snapdragons work well. Stock works pretty well if it's not extremely hot outside. So we can bring in more of those linear flowers. Having like small buttons and cushion flowers work really, really well because they're very long lasting, and so is mini carnations. And it's kind of messy up top, but I'm not really worrying about that. We'll just layer in a little bit of baby's breath to give ourselves a little bit of texture, and because it's long lasting. Now we're gonna take a zip tie, and first I'm gonna look at this in the mirror. I'm so up close to it, I can't see if I wanna adjust anything. So I really depend on a mirror when I'm hand building. And I'm gonna do that, and then I'll slap a zip tie on it. Okay, so I've added this rose in the center. I know I have these crazy stems, and now I have this a 12-inch zip tie, and it's the best way for me to secure it together without changing my hand placement. So I bring it through and just try to make sure that all the stems are included. And we can always throw some wire on it if needed. And that is why it's nice to have those stems long, because if you cut them short as you go, when you're working with it, it just makes it that much easier for it to slide out. So we can always cut the stems later. There we go. So I don't really need to crank down on this zip tie. I don't want to put the strain on the stems. Here we go. Let's loosen up my hand placement. So now I'm looking in the mirror and I'm coming in, and before I'm really pulling that zip tie down tight, I just want to make sure and get the placement with my flowers and backfill with any extras. So I can come in with this little chrysanthemum or this cushion flower and just layer in a few more pieces. So now I'm going to tighten down that zip tie a little bit. And this is a nice time you can, since you're not holding the whole thing together, you can use your hands to pull some florals out and adjust. But you can't do that if you pull down too tightly on that zip tie. So that's why I'm a little bit conservative. Okay, so at this point, you can start cutting off those long, awkward stems. Let's see if we've covered those. For the most part, yes. Let's put the zip tie in the back. And now it's a question of how do we attach it to the picture, to the easel. So for this, I think I could really just get away with adding another zip tie and tying it to the actual easel. And then obviously I have mechanics that would be seeing, so I could always wrap like a silk ribbon and kind of layer it through and let it hang off. Or I can just take little pieces of greenery, small flowers like mini carnations, cushion palm, baby's breath, and just sit and backfill and thread those little stems through. None of it's gonna be in water, so it will hold up just fine. We just wanna cover those zip ties. And then if you're wanting this greenery to stay up on the top of the sign, you can pretty much achieve that by maybe adding a little bit of floral putty and looping it around the greenery. So I'm gonna work on rigging this up. And to be honest, you kind of need a buddy to help you with this. But we'll see if I can. As a florist, this is why I didn't love sign requests. Okay, so this is pretty stationary on this easel. And more than likely, I can just manually adjust it and pull some greenery on the other side. So it's not, maybe not so heavy-handed. I didn't have as much clearance as I thought with the back of this easel, so I just put a little piece of wire and threaded it around. And now I'll work on adjusting it and hiding my mechanics. So we can see those zip ties, and this is how we go in and hide them. And at this point, it's just a patience game. And I cut them really short and get them really tight on the arrangement so you don't see those. Those little zip ties poking through. Okay, like I said, every sign's different. That sign fit pretty well for the easel, but let's say that you have like a table easel, or this is a sign that's leaning up against a wall and you can't attach it to the easel for whatever reason. How would I attach this to this sign? So my first request would be like, can I put a nail in it or a little hook? That to me would work really well. Obviously that's not always possible, because if it's a venue sign, they don't want you doing that. So that's where command hooks come in really nice. So I've got this command hook, and obviously I don't want to hook it that way. I want to turn it upside down. So I might even, if I had a really heavy swag, I might, you know, double down and put 2 right next to each other. And so how that works, and this sign is honestly not like the best example for top florals because it would cover up this lettering, but essentially what you have is the ability to hook a floral swag onto it, or hook this, man, it's heavy, hook this igloo on it. So what I would do for this is I would bring wire into it, so you could use paddle wire, bind wire. You have these little tabs, and I think that they would be strong enough, but what would I do? I'm always a little bit nervous when it comes to those plastic tabs. So I would probably want to string it through the actual cage and then come through on the tab so there's not so much pressure on it. So then, if you can imagine, this is how it would hang. So we have this command hook, and again, like if you're worried, put 2 together, use 2 wires if you want to be thorough. So I have this command hook upside down, or a traditional metal hook, or a nail, but something to wrap my wire around. And then my floral swag or my igloo would be in front. And from there, obviously this would be soaked, and it would be, you know, already have water and moisture in it. Then I would drive my greenery in it, green it out first, backfill with my florals. If it's outside and it's really windy, I might add some floral glue on the stems. There's so many different ways, and that's why it's not just one straight teaching method. If you're a new florist and you're learning, this putty works really well. Now it would more hold some florals in place to keep it from just coming off the side of the sign. So if you wanted to keep florals more up top, I would probably reach for some putty. If they don't like command hooks, gaffer's tape works really well. Always have command hooks, always have zip ties, always have wire. So these are the different things that I carry with me to a venue when I know that I'm going to have to put florals on a sign and I have no idea what kind of sign, how big it's going to be, what it's going to be against. So that's why it's important to know those things before going on site. If you're DIYing, you know what sign you have, and you know which version of what I taught would work for you. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like or subscribe, and visit flowermoxie.com. Thank you so much.